Again, thank you for coming today. The title of the message today is Avoid Making the Wrong Choices. The efforts which we make to escape from our destiny only serve to lead us into it. The American essayist Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that in his book called The Conduct of Life, and it's just as true today as it was when it was published back in 1860. Because God gives us freedom of choice, we can either ignore His will or argue with it or disobey it, even fight against it, but in the end the will of God will prevail. Okay? Someone has written, we are who we are today because of the choices we made yesterday. Likewise, tomorrow will become the result of today's choices. I've heard that the Canadian Northlands experience only two seasons, winter and July. As the back roads begin to thaw, they become muddy, and vehicles traveling through the back country leave deep ruts. The ground freezes hard during the winter months, and the highway ruts become a part of the traveling channels or challenges as well. For vehicles entering this undeveloped area during the winter, there is a sign which reads, "Driver, please choose carefully which rut you will drive in because you will be in it for the next 20 miles. The point is that sometimes life can put you into some pretty deep ruts or difficult ruts. We all know that life can deal us some pretty devastating blows that make you want to run and hide from the ruts that you're in. We want to try to do in this life. What we want to do in this life is try to avoid the ruts that we can get into. In the book of Ruth, we read that a family finds themselves in a rut. Life has put them in a difficult situation. The problems that they were going through left them in a situation where they didn't seem to be many options left for them in order to get out of their situation. The decision that was made, that they made, took them on a journey far away from their homes and trials. In the book of Ruth, we see that this family is trying to run from their problems that they were experiencing. To them, the grass looked greener on the other side of the fence or other side of the border, as we usually say. We read in Ruth chapter 1, beginning in verse 1, "In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The name of the man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi, and the names of the 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephraimites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab to live there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah. Orpah, I don't know exactly his name. And the other was Ruth. After they lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of His people by providing food for them, Naomi and the 2 daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah." Now in these first 7 verses of Ruth, we are introduced to a family of a man by the name of Elimelech who lived during the days of the judges. And in order to get the context of what's going on here, you have to read the book of Judges to understand what's going on. But it is a sad tale of a man who chooses to walk out on the Lord and on God's plan for his life by choosing to go some other direction, okay? The days of his life were difficult. Not unlike many of the situations that we go through today. As a result of his decision, he and his family pay a high price for leaving God's land there, if you will. It may have seemed like to them that God had abandoned them. Maybe they felt that God was not answering their prayers the way that they thought he should. He wasn't answering their requests soon enough, maybe. So they decided to leave. It was pretty obvious that they were running out of patience with God. We are told that Elimelech takes his family to a place called Moab, and Moab was located across the river, Jordan River, east of the Promised Land. It was inhabited by the people who worshiped pagan gods. The Moabites were descendants of a man named Moab, who was the son of an incestuous relationship between Lot and his oldest daughter. That's who those people were. Huh? And you can read about that in Genesis chapter 19, verses 30 through 38. The Moabites were Israel's enemy because of the way they had treated Israel during the journey from Egypt to Canaan. This was a people opposed to the God and God's ways, and also opposed to his people. In Psalms chapter 60 and verse 8, we read that God says that Moab is my washpot, or wash basin. This phrase means that they were a despised thing. God says that they are nothing, and that they will be reduced to the lowest form of slavery. J. Vernon McGee says that the way to paraphrase what God was saying about Moab would be to say that Moab is a garbage can. Okay? So what is taking place here is that Elimelech and his family was leaving Bethlehem, the house of bread, for the garbage can. They were leaving the land of praise for the washpot. Moab was a place that God frowned upon. Its people were an outcast people. Moab in the Bible is a type of the old man and the fleshly desires of the old life. And what we see here is Elimelech moving his family back to the old ways, old lifestyle.